You know, when you think of Bertrand Russell, you probably think of the brilliant logician, the controversial critic, the Nobel Prize winner. But before all that, there was the man, and he tells us himself what drove him. It wasn't some abstract philosophy, but these three incredibly powerful, deeply human passions. This, right here, is our starting point.
So that's what we're going to do. We're going to unpack one of his most powerful essays, What I Believe, and try to build a real, practical guide to the good life, based on his totally unique mix of fearless logic and profound compassion.
To really get Russell's vision for a good life, you first have to see the world his way. And that means starting with a cold, hard look at our place in the universe, not through the lens of faith, but through the uncompromising lens of science.
For Russell, the starting point is this simple, kind of humbling truth. Humanity isn't special. We're not separate. We're not fallen angels or anything like that. We are simply a part of the vast machinery of nature, made of the same stuff as stars and atoms, and we follow the exact same physical laws.
And this right here shows you the huge gap between the old worldview and Russell's. On one side, you have this comforting story of a cosmic purpose, an immortal soul. On the other, a universe that frankly doesn't care about us one bit, where our consciousness is just a product of our brain, and it just stops when we die.
I mean, that is pure Russell. It's a defiant call for us to be intellectually brave. He's saying that facing the truth of our own end without flinching or hiding behind comforting myths is a mark of real dignity. And hey, happiness isn't any less real just because it doesn't last forever.
Okay, so if there's no God, no afterlife, no cosmic rulebook, what's left? Are we just floating in a meaningless universe? Not for Russell, not at all. For him, this is where the real work begins. This is where we can finally start building a positive way to live. And here it is, the core of his entire philosophy, boiled down to one elegant sentence. It sounds simple, but every single word is doing some heavy lifting. He's tossing out divine commands and abstract duties, and replacing them with two things rooted in our actual experience, love and knowledge.
So what does he actually mean by love? Well, it's not just some vague, sentimental feeling. He breaks it down into two parts. First, there's delight. That's the pure joy you get from just contemplating something beautiful, whether it's a piece of art or another person. The second part is benevolence, the active, real desire for someone else to be well. And here is why you need both. Love by itself, without knowledge, can be a disaster. Russell gives the example of people praying in crowded churches during a plague, great intentions, but their ignorance just spreads the disease. And the flip side is even scarier. Knowledge without love gives you the cold, calculating efficiency of modern warfare. It's monstrous.
Okay, so the formula seems simple enough. Love plus knowledge. So why is it so hard? Well, according to Russell, the biggest obstacle is something we're all taught to respect, traditional morality itself. Now, this is a pretty provocative claim. Russell's view is that most of what we call morality, all those lists of sins and rules passed down for generations, isn't actually about making people happy. He saw it as a toxic mix of ancient, irrational fears and, more disturbingly, a thinly veiled excuse for cruelty.
And he wasn't just being abstract. He points to specific, real-world harms. He saw traditional morality causing huge suffering with its obsessive and cruel rules about sex, its opposition to birth control which doomed millions to poverty, and its vindictive, punishing approach to crime. All of this led him to a pretty dark conclusion about what really motivates so-called moralists.
This quote just cuts right to the bone. He's suggesting that for a lot of people, being moral is less about doing good and more about getting the satisfaction of punishing people who break the rules. The sinner becomes a target, and condemning them feels righteous.
So up to now, we've focused a lot on the individual. But Russell's philosophy pushes back hard on the idea that you can just perfect yourself in a vacuum. He believed we have to think bigger.
You know, the old model was all about individual salvation. The whole idea was that your main duty was to save your own soul, no matter what was happening in the world around you. You could be a saint even if society was completely falling apart.
And Russell's response to this is a hard no. He says we are fundamentally social creatures. Pretending you can have a good life in isolation while others are suffering isn't just selfish, it's impossible. Our well-being is completely tied up with the health of our community. And this isn't some vague idea. To live a good life, you need real, tangible things that a functioning society provides. A decent education, enough income so you're not constantly anxious, good health, friends and love, and work that's at least kinda interesting. You can't just meditate your way to a good life if you're starving or sick. So this brings us to the final, critical part of Russell's vision. If a good society is essential for a good life, how on earth do we build one? What's the main enemy we need to defeat?
It's not sin. It's not greed. It's not even ignorance, though that's part of it. For Russell, the deepest root of all cruelty, hatred, and destruction is fear. The fear of death, the fear of other people, the fear of just ruin.
And what's worse, in Russell's view, is that religion has made the problem bigger. By building its whole structure on the fear of death and divine punishment, it has basically legitimized fear itself. It's made people think it's okay, even noble, to be afraid. Russell's response to that? All fear is bad. Period.
Because just look at what fear does to us. It makes us frantic. We desperately chase security. And we start to believe the only way to be secure is to dominate other people. And that creates a zero-sum world of brutal competition, which just inevitably spirals into cruelty and war.
And so, we end right back where we started, with courage. For Russell, the entire project of building a better world and a better self comes down to this one challenge. It's a call to replace fear with knowledge, to replace cruelty with love, and to build a society where happiness isn't some private quest for salvation, but a shared project we all work on together. The question is, are we brave enough to try?